Yeah, I think that my view doesn't rely that much on how we should handle politically crime. We should just put people in jail as soon as they commit it, and we should keep them there, which is not what we're doing right now. Too bad.
Then I would suggest that the members of the audience use their own preferences to come to decisions here. Do you have a preference towards veterans dying on the streets? Do you have a preference towards living in a society where homelessness runs rampant? I have a preference against that. I have a preference towards what I view as fairness. You have a preference towards what you view as fairness, which seems to be some relatively amoral things that I wouldn't really be in favor of. But to title back, I think that if the prescriptions you make about the link between crime and genes all come back to this idea of all things to do with any kind of behavior all necessarily boils down to genes. So any kind of prescription is a prescription about any kind of prescription to solve crime is a prescription that relates to crime and genes. Then we may as well just throw the genes out entirely, assume it's all like free will or magic or something, and all of your prescriptions from your ethical position should still hold just as true. And it would be like it wouldn't even be like necessary, I guess, to show a link between crime and genes for any of these prescriptions.
Yeah, I think that my view doesn't rely that much on how we should handle politically crime. We should just put people in jail as soon as they commit it, and we should keep them there, which is not what we're doing right now. Too bad. But the reason it matters to public policy and thinking is that the current people in power are not like me. The current people in power are having a social conception of crime whereby criminals can be rehabilitated, and that's a big question, how much of them can be and how they can be, and whether it is fair for the future victims of the recidivists to be taking for granted that we can help them to not become criminals. As far as I can see, recidivism is a thing even in those claimed social worker program successes, where they claim that they are lowering recidivism. I'm not sure that we have good data to determine just how much of these people are just succeeding at making crimes and not getting caught for it. But I think we're doing injustices here to the victims. And you were talking about immigration, for example. We know that by a certain immigration policy, we are victimizing a certain number of the locals. A certain number of the already existing citizens would eventually become victim of the crimes committed by migrants in a future time point. That's a big moral problem, in my view, that we should address as soon as we can. But the left doesn't want to address it. The left has decided that it was worth it to sacrifice certain locals, that they will be victims of crime committed by migrants, just because the migrants will help their electoral project to turn America into a socialist state. That is extremely cynical. And you were pointing to my nihilistic morals. I will say the nihilistic morals of the elite of the left right now and the Democrat Party are looking worse than mine, where they sacrifice future victims of crime in the white population. They expose them to a higher percentage of crime than they would be in an entirely white society, just for gaining votes. That's quite cynical.
So this is kind of like interesting. Why should it from your perspective, which seems to be like let the strongest survive, right? Under your worldview, I'm not sure why exactly we shouldn't just like completely open every border, have no regulation on like flow in and out, and just like let whoever is willing to work for the cheapest amount do it, and allow something along those lines. I don't see how this really follows from your worldview. I could see a socialist making an argument that we should have some kind of like immigration control. I just couldn't see somebody with the same views as you doing that.
Well, you could have, from a natural perspective, Africa everywhere, essentially. And you could say, why don't all countries devolve into authoritarian feudal regime where violence determines most of the outcome for everyone. That being said, I come from a different branch of genetics, a branch of people who have survived in highly organized and fortified societies that were creating an inner system of trade and cooperation within the society, and at the same time ensuring that the people from outside this society weren't coming in to exploit the generosity and the cooperation that was developing inside. So in my view, yes, your possibility is a possible state of the world, but I want otherwise, because my genes are not particularly talented at surviving in Africa. They are talented at surviving in a Nordic nation with relatively low rates of crime and high levels of cooperation and trust.
So it's more like I guess, an egoistic approach where it's just whatever preserves your own genes is the thing that you care about most, even if that comes at the cost of the lives and expenses of other people.
Well, I don't see the cost that you're talking about, but I will say yes, I think it is fine for people to claim their right to exist and to claim a territory on which they want their continued existence to be assured.
Do you think people have a right to exist?
That's not exactly what I say, because this phrasing leads you to believe that they have a right stemming from nature. I said that people claim a right to exist, and I think it's totally fair for someone to claim a right to exist. You claim a right by making it happen.